Hey everyone, welcome back. Glenn here, and just an update on some good progress we've made over the last week or so. My son was graciously able to come in last weekend and this past weekend to help me with this. And last weekend he did all my welding for me, and we got all the body mounts capped and did a really nice job with that. Prior to doing that, I had taken measurements on where, the best of my ability, I could measure where the existing body mounts were in relation to a couple of key points in each location. So once we capped those solid, I was able to measure that back and mark it, and then go ahead and drill with a hole saw for the new body mounts, and so they fit in there nicely. I got a set of these new mounts from Energy Suspension. It's a really nice kit, polyurethane mounts. They look good, they're really durable, and that should increase the characteristics of the handling on the Blazer here. So this past weekend, after I put another coat of gloss paint on this, we were able to start the assembly and finish that on the suspension. And we have the front suspension installed, new A-arms, new brakes, rotors. Amazingly, I was able to find brand new GM dust shields for the front, and so that was a really good find from Rock Auto, actually. And so we have the sway bar bushings. I went urethane on everything, all from Energy Suspension. I think it all will work well together. We got our front all done. I added a little bit of color, painted the torsion bars. Why not? Just a little bit of splash of red. I think it looks good. Painted the sway bar. And the wheels really work well with showing, yeah, calipers and rotors and all that. It's going to look really nice rolling down the road. We got all new mounts for all the suspension, and looking quite well. We installed the rear axle. This is an 8.8 out of a 1999 Ford Explorer that I had rebuilt, and I added, replaced all the clutches in it with Ford racing clutches, and it has a Mustang Cobra spring for the limited slip. I went ahead and did that. Hopefully this will hold up good. Trying to stay on a budget here, so if I do have a problem later on or do need to rebuild it later, I'll probably put an Eaton locker in it, but I just didn't have that in the budget this time. And it has the stock 373 ratio gears in it, which according to what I'm reading is they're very strong gears. I inspected those. There was no problem whatsoever with that. I also fabricated some drop-down adapters for the torsion bar mount, or not torsion bar, but the sway bar, the rear sway bar mount. This is the Blazer sway bar, but I made these mounts to adapt to where the Explorer sway bar mounted. these axles have a 1/2 inch wider overall mount at the leaf spring than the Blazer did. So what I did, I constructed some 1 inch thick aluminum blocks because I did want to lower the rear end, lower the car anyway. So in this case, since the axle sits on top of the leaf spring, you can effectively lower the vehicle by adding spacers in the in between the axle and the leaf spring. So we did that, and I added offset pinholes that are a 1/4 inch offset top to bottom, so the bottom hole lines up with the peg on the leaf spring, and the top has a 5 inch locator pin that's shifted over a 1/4 inch to match up with the Ford Explorer rear end. So there was no modification necessary to the rear end, and the wheel-to-wheel mount was within a 1/2 inch of stock, so it worked well. No problems there. It tracked really good. It actually widened the stance in the rear because in these, the 4-wheel drive versions of the Blazers, the front suspension track is wider than the rear, and I always thought that was kind of weird, but anyway, this corrects that. So we've got all 4 tires rolling basically at the same track, and should do well. But I'm real happy with all the repair we did and the welding. I did have to order a special hole saw for these bushings. It's a 1 7/8 inch, and just be careful going through there. Drill your pilot hole first, and then everything will fit like a charm. One thing I also did was we eliminated the speed nut, the clip nuts for the shock mounts, and we went ahead and welded in some bolts, so I have a threaded stud to line up the shock from underneath, and that should be real helpful. Still have to order the shocks. Kind of on the fence with going with a KYB monotube, or Rancho makes I think it's an RS 9000 that has an adjustable feature, and either one of those will work. It's just there's a lot of money involved there, and it's going to be a while before I really need shocks on this. It's going to be, you know, hopefully into the fall, late fall, when I can get this thing at least running again. But overall, really quite pleased with what turned out here. It was pretty easy to put together, and it was a real blessing to be able to deal with new parts. And so we did all this work and really didn't even get dirty. So but again, I want to thank my son for showing up and helping me with this, and also my best friend came by and gave us a hand. And yeah, we're looking forward to keeping progress being made on this. And the next thing I've got to do is I'm working on the steering, and I had done some more research on the steering boxes, and one of the last videos I talked about steering boxes. I had misinformation, and the ratios were not right. I talked about turns lock to lock, which I should have said ratio, but the stock Blazer gearbox is like a 3.5 turn to turn lock, or lock to lock turn rate on that. And I contacted a a large rebuilder of the gearboxes, and back and forth a couple of emails, and I had read some articles about some of the muscle car steering ratios, and I do know that the Blazer had a variable ratio. So in the middle, where you're just driving straight down the road, the overall ratio is like 16-to-1. So it's real kind of loose. It's not a performance type steering. It's just it's more for comfort. And then out at the ends of the turn, as you're turning, the ratio tightens up a bit, and I think it goes to eventually like 13-to-1 at the end of the travel. But I did some research, and I was going to use, you know, a Jeep Cherokee gearbox, and I read some things on that. They weren't quite clear. There was some conflicting information, so I just opted to go with what I know would fit and work, and I ordered a gearbox from a S10 truck sport version. This is classified as I think it's an RQ8, and it is a 3-turn lock-to-lock constant ratio, so it gives you that little quicker response in the center and not so many turns to go from locking to the left to the right. So it should be pretty good. I'm going to be happy with that. So we'll get on that. I've got the link bar that I was able to recycle, stripped that down, got that repainted, and we've got all new tie rod ends to install, new idler arm, new pitman arm, and we'll get all that done and keep moving forward. And then also in the next couple of days I've got a new fuel tank coming, so getting ready to put that in, and we're going to go back with the stock fuel tank, 19-gallon tank, and I'll just run the exhaust down both sides here on the opposite side of the fuel tank. So we'll run our dual exhaust out that way. But I am looking for a increased volume and pressure pump to go into the stock fuel tank, and I think that's going to be like a Walbro 345 or something like that, or something compatible that'll give me the pressure we need for the LS swap, and be a good reliable pump. So anyway, just wanted to give you all a quick update and let you know that progress is being made, and it's looking pretty good. It's been a while since it's rolled on 4 wheels, so we can do that now. I can keep pushing it outside. And one of the next things coming up, we'll mock up the engine and transmission and get it set in here, so we can start looking at exhaust wiring, lines, run all the brake lines, all that stuff. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you all are well, and take care, and come back soon. We'll have another update for you. Thanks a lot.